What up, world? R.I.C.H coming right back at you. And today, we got to talk about the disgusting violence that happened in Chicago over the Juneteenth weekend. And I'm going to be honest, this one hurts in a way that's not easy to put into words. Juneteenth is supposed to represent black freedom, black survival. And the fact that our ancestors made it through something this country never should have done to us. But in Chicago, a weekend that should have been about memory and celebration turned into gunfire, hospitals, funerals, and families trying to figure out how a holiday became a crime scene.
It's hurtful because of this holiday and how many people lives were given for this holiday to exist, to see lives taken this way, to see this happening after such a wonderful day yesterday with the opening of the library and everything, and to have a night like this with just shooting and mayhem and tragedy.
Obviously, today we are still continuing our efforts as we will remain focused on building the safest, most affordable big city in America. Last night was another reminder of how much work we still have to do to the lives who have been impacted by gun violence. Know that my administration is working overtime, not only to hold people accountable to remove illegal guns off the streets of the city of Chicago, working with our superintendent, our CVI, and all of our partners coming together to make sure that nights like last night do not become a regular part of our pattern. With the progress that we are making, we are obviously still very much determined to protect the lives of this city. It's the top priority that I have. We're not going to tolerate the senseless acts of violence, and we're going to continue to ensure that we make the critical investments to not just hold people accountable, but to make sure that we're preventing these acts of violence from ever occurring.
The most painful part is that these people are not just numbers in a holiday shooting. They were people who left home expecting to come back. Somebody was there to celebrate. Somebody was there to see family. Somebody was just standing outside on a holiday that was supposed to represent freedom. Then a red SUV pulled up and turned that moment into terror.
In with breaking news of a mass shooting on Chicago's South Side. We just learned 12 people were hurt. Asal Razai is live at Chicago Police Headquarters as officers investigate. And Asal, what do we know about the victims so far?
Yeah, Megan, we are still trying to comb through the details that were just released by Chicago police. So far, we know that at least 12 people were shot and taken to local hospitals. We know police found at least 2 of them at the scene near 95th and Wentworth. I want to show you video we have of this scene. You're going to see dozens of evidence markers. We counted over 100 so far. This is just after 11 o'clock last night near 95th and Wentworth. As I mentioned, police say so far their preliminary investigation finding that a red SUV pulled alongside a large crowd there. 2 people from inside of that SUV started shooting towards the crowd before driving off. We know multiple victims were shot, 12 people again shot, taken to local hospitals. Again, some of those people were able to drive themselves to the hospitals or be taken by other people. We know officers say they found a 32-year-old woman with at least 2 gunshot wounds to her back, a 44-year-old man with several graze wounds to his back. Megan, it appears that the victims are anywhere between 17 and 47 years old. Again, this is near the Washington Heights neighborhood. You can see a large police presence there. Officers shining their flashlights as they're investigating that scene. Still very little details available as to what exactly led up to this shooting. We're still hoping to find out more information information about the victims and exactly how they're doing so far. It looks like most of them, from the information that we have from police, are in good condition, except one 26-year-old that is in critical condition at the University of Chicago Medical Center right now. Megan, we're working to get more details. We'll bring you more updates just as soon as we learn more. I'm live at Chicago Police Headquarters. R.I.C.H, CBS News, Chicago.
That is disgusting and that is heartbreaking. And it is embarrassing to even have to say that black people cannot gather on Juneteenth without black people being shot in the street. I know some of y'all don't like to hear that, but what else am I supposed to say? We can talk about poverty, trauma, public schools, politics, guns, gangs, and everything else that helps create this environment. But none of that changes the fact that our people are bleeding. And when our people are bleeding, we have to be able to tell the truth without turning it into a political performance. You can hear the exhaustion in the people's voices. The church leaders, the community workers, the neighbors, the people who keep showing up after the damage is already done. They are trying, but you can tell they are tired. And I respect them because somebody has to stand there and say life still matters. But I also understand why people feel hopeless. How many times can a community say enough before the words start feeling like part of a routine? That is the part that keeps you up at night. It's not just the shooting. It's the feeling that nobody really knows how to stop it. I'm older now, so maybe I see it through a different lens. But when you try to talk to some of these young people, they look at you like you outdated, like you don't understand their world, or like your wisdom is too old to matter. The sad part is that they have more information in their hand than we ever had. But a phone full of information does not make you wise. You can look up history, money, law, faith, and every warning about where the street life goes. But if you do not value your own life, the information can't save you. And right now, too many of our young people are already moving like their life is over. That is a spiritual problem. That is a family problem. That is a community problem. And yes, that's a political problem too. Because when people start talking about federal help or National Guard help, I understand why black people get nervous. We know the history of law enforcement in our communities. We know how help can turn into occupation if it's done wrong. But here's my issue. If Governor Pritzker and other leaders are going to say no help from Trump, then what is the plan that's strong enough to match the blood in these streets? Because people are dying. Black people are dying. And I need to know if this will happen the same way if another group of people were falling dead every weekend in another major city in America. Would everybody still be comfortable turning it into a political argument? Will we still be talking about optics, jurisdictions, and party lines? Or would somebody declare this a national emergency and start moving like every life actually matters? That is the question that bothers me. Because when black people die in large numbers, America has a way of making it feel normal. Not acceptable out loud, but normal in practice. The headlines come, the mayor speaks, the governor responds, Trump posts, everybody picks their side, and the families are still left with the bodies. That is not leadership. That is politics standing over a crime scene.
Because violence is a moral issue. It's the life and death of our children, and in reality, it's the life and the death and the health of our communities. Violence has been down in Chicago, but that's not a norm. It's new. It's good news, but it's new news. Violence was up last month, and we look at this last weekend to see the violence that took place in the city. It is vulnerable, and so it must be addressed in a very continuous effort, which is why we need a gun violence office that goes from administration to administration, that oversees, that coordinates, that holds people accountable, and that it goes to good strategies throughout the city so we can have this violence not become just an exception, but a norm for Chicago.
I am deeply concerned to make sure that we're keeping the people of Illinois safe. We've had some terrible tragedies that have occurred. It's why I have asked for help from the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, because going after guns and drugs and gangs is something that concerns me, just like it does local residents who are affected by those factors.
Strategies like this highlights the need for sustained investment in violence prevention, victim services, trauma-informed care, and community-led solutions that allow residents to gather safely without the fear of gun violence.
I don't want these numbers to make people numb. 7 people dead and dozens injured is not just a statistic. Those are families that will never be the same. 14-year-old Marcus Chapman Jr. was one of the lives lost over that weekend.
Marcus Chapman's murder happened 1 week before his 15th birthday. His mother describes him as a kid who loved sports. And tonight she's baffled as to why her son was targeted. At 14, Marcus Chapman had a way of brightening up a room.
He can make a friend wherever he go.
Last Thursday night near 80th and Carpenter, Marcus's mother says he was with so-called friends when, for reasons unknown, someone shot him in his back, leaving him to die in an alley.
He was spending the night over there. And I figured I'll just talk to Marcus tomorrow. And it didn't go that way.
In the middle of the night, this mother was told to get to the hospital. Yet when she arrived, she could sense her son wasn't okay. After waiting in the room alone, a doctor revealed the news.
He's dead on arrival. There's nothing that we can do to save him. And I just broke down. But who came? My football family.
Amani Hicks kept Marcus active in the Midwest Hawks Youth Football League from age 6 until he aged out at 13.
This is Marcus' football jersey.
And that league has stepped up tremendously in this trying time, well beyond just flowers. The youth team has set up this fundraiser to help pay for services. Hicks has 3 younger boys, 10, 7, and 6, to also care for.
I pray that me and my boys stay strong for each other.
As Mom tries to stay strong, she's waiting on another call.
I pray that the state's attorney called me and said, we got this person.
She says the police investigation reveals Marcus's so-called friends are linked to his death, and she says video shows what happened.
My son is walking in front of them. They're behind him. They shoot my baby 2 times in his back.
She wants his death to be a warning to other teens when it comes to choosing friends.
He will be 15 Friday, and instead of me planning his birthday, I'm planning a funeral.
And a child that age should be thinking about summer, school, friends, and getting older, not becoming part of another Chicago violence recap. That should break something inside us. A child should not become a line in a news report. A mother should not have to prepare for a funeral while politicians argue about who gets to control the response. And that is why I cannot just brush off the federal help conversation. I'm not saying Trump has all the answers. I am not saying sending in troops will automatically fix the city. But I am saying when people are getting shot like this, you cannot reject help just because you don't like the person offering it. And then expect people not to ask, what's your plan? If the help is wrong, explain why it's wrong, and then give us your plan to make it better. If you believe local leaders can handle it, then handle it in a way people can feel. Because black families don't need another press conference. They need their children to come home alive. That is what my anger is. Not with one party, not with one person. With the fact that black death keeps getting treated like a manageable problem instead of a moral emergency. If a city has weekends where black people are being shot in waves, then somebody has to be brave enough to say, the current response is not enough. And I don't care who gets offended by that. The dead are not worried about political feelings. The injured are not healing faster because somebody won a political talking point. The parents are not sleeping better because one side got to say they stood up to the other. This is way bigger than that.
Too often, we talk about gun violence. The conversation solely talks about those who are shot. But women and girls experience gun violence every single day as survivors, as witnesses, as caregivers, as family members who are left to pick up the pieces. They carry the trauma, the grief, the responsibility of helping families and communities heal. At Focus Fairies, we work with girls who have lost loved ones to gun violence and girls who are navigating the reentry and involvement in the juvenile justice system. We see firsthand how violence impacts their mental health, their educational outcomes, the sense of safety, the future opportunities. This is exactly why this department is needed. A Department of Gun Violence Reduction will create accountability, coordination, and long-term, I'm gonna say it again, long-term investment in prevention, intervention, healing, and community-based solutions.
You know, again, I want to acknowledge, again, the incredible harm and trauma that gun violence has promulgated, not just throughout the city of Chicago, but throughout our country. It is incredibly disappointing and disheartening that the President of the United States of America has worked overtime to defund the very institutions that can keep people safe. From $800 million that he has taken away from violence prevention, $800 million that he placed in the pockets of big corporations and the ultra-rich at the expense of our overall safety. Again, reducing the ATF budget by 30%, the entity of government that we work with at the federal level to remove illegal weapons off the streets of Chicago. Now, we know that there are at least 13 states across the country that has an office that is dedicated to reducing gun violence. The Biden administration established the first of its kind at the federal level. What I have said and what I will continue to say is that I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find ways in which we can work together to reduce violence as a whole, but gun violence particularly. I'm prepared to talk more about, this particular call to action later this week. But as you know, this particular advocacy group has been calling for such an office to exist through multiple administrations. And we're going to continue to hear how the work that we're doing to drive violence down can work in coordination with the vision that this organization and organizing apparatus has.
The hardest part is how familiar this all feels. A holiday weekend comes around, everybody hopes for peace, and then the news starts counting the damage. And after that, the same questions keep coming back. How do we reach young people who think the older generation don't understand? How do we teach life value to people who have seen so much death that death doesn't shake them the way it shook us? How do we stop a person who is already riding around with a gun and no fear of what happens after they pull the trigger? I don't have a pretty answer, and I'm not gonna fake like I do. Sometimes it makes you feel like crying because it feels like nothing can get through. You speak, they laugh. You warn them, they call you old. You show them consequences, and some of them still think they are different until a bullet, a judge, or a casket proves them otherwise. That is what makes this situation so disheartening. It is not that we don't love our people. It is that love is not strong enough to interrupt this violence. But even when hope feels heavy, we still have to tell the truth. Juneteenth should have been about freedom. Instead, Chicago had to face the fact that too many black people are still not safe from other black people. And that truth should not be used to shame us in front of the world. It should be used to wake us up inside our homes, our own blocks, our families, and our own leadership. Because black freedom cannot just mean we survived slavery. It has to mean our children can stand outside on a holiday without getting shot. It has to mean our communities deserve the same urgency that other communities would receive if their children were falling in the street every weekend. It has to mean politicians don't get to hide behind party lines while black families keep paying the price. If Trump's help is wrong, then show us the help that is right. If the governor says he has it handled, then the people need to see that handling before another child is dead. And if the community is tired of being used as a political football, then we have to demand more than statements from all these people claiming they care. Because black people are dying, not in theory, not in a campaign speech. And until that becomes urgent enough to make everybody uncomfortable, we are going to keep having this same sad-ass conversation every weekend. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Established Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.